Hey guys, today I'll be sharing my first review on Anthem. I say first because the game is going to evolve over time, and this one review will be focused on the state of the game at launch. In a few months, things could be a lot different. I have a pretty good grasp on the flow of the game at this point in time, now that I've dumped a considerable amount of hours into Anthem. I've completed the campaign, and more importantly, dove into the endgame to see what it has to offer. So what I'll do is break this video down into a few parts, and those will be the critical path, aka the main story, the endgame / grind, the gameplay and features / bugs / technical issues, microtransactions and the economy, and lastly, whether or not I would recommend buying it, waiting, or just avoiding it. Real quick before we jump into the first category, I made a video a few weeks ago called A Brutally Honest Review of Anthem that was reviewing the demo for this game. I talked about how it made me feel going into launch and what I expected to happen, and I didn't feel the need to speculate on microtransactions back then, and I didn't even really cover technical issues, but I'll go over all of that in this video, and we'll see just how good of an example the demo really was. I feel like my last review went a little hard on Anthem when I didn't have the full experience at my fingertips, and I completely understand that it was just a demo. That said, I think I still had a fair balance of things I liked and things I didn't, and it was clear I was tempering expectations. But this time around, I've got all the knowledge, I have a much stronger and more refined opinion on the game, and I've got something to say about almost every part of it. I want this to be a very in-depth review, and it's going to go over pretty much everything without any serious spoilers of any story stuff. And I wanted to warn you now that while this review has a ton of very positive things to say about the game, it's also very critical and may come off as very negative. Those of you who know me know that I don't like shitting on things for no reason. Like any review or opinion piece I've made, I don't like holding back, so I'll tell it like it is. I mentioned later in the review that I'm still going to make videos on Anthem because I'm still really enjoying it, but I want to make this review as helpful as possible so that you guys know what you're getting with this game. Okay, so let's dive into the review. The main story of Anthem will probably take you around 15 to 20 hours depending on how long you or your team takes to clear missions. I did every mission with a group on hard difficulty, which honestly felt like normal difficulty, and things went pretty fast. The story of the campaign is not unheard of. It's not going to be remembered or cherished in the same way that things like Mass Effect was. On the surface, it was kind of your run-of-the-mill bad guy that wants to be an all-powerful being, and you gotta stop him kind of story. The bad guy, the Monitor, has the coolest looking armor ever, by the way. It's amazing. The characters you talk to do throw out a lot of things you won't understand until you familiarize yourself with the Anthem universe more, but it basically ends up boiling down to go over here, recover this piece so we can upgrade your javelin, go and kill those bad guys so they don't get a hold of this, you know, your typical looter shooter format. BioWare has clearly already had some really amazing campaigns in the past, but I think Anthem is a testament to just how difficult it is to write a compelling narrative that also fits into the generic multiplayer looter shooter format of killing a bunch of dudes until the game says you're done. The one really dumb thing they did in the campaign, which I still don't understand, is stick a super grindy free play objective right in the middle of the story that's required before you can move on. You have 4 tombs in free play that you have to enter, but before you can gain access to them, you have to complete a handful of challenges to unlock each one. Challenges like complete world events, open 15 chests in free play, collect a bunch of materials, revive down teammates, get melee kills. It's just really bizarre, and I have no clue why they would make something like this required to get back to the main missions. This will definitely turn a lot of people off from the game, and it just doesn't fit in the critical path at all. It breaks up the story in a really bad way. Now, throughout the story is a twist or two and some cool cutscenes, but again, nothing out of this world. The interactions you have with the main characters in the game are actually really good though, and to me they were as enjoyable as the actual shooting. The interactions you had felt natural, they felt real, and hearing your character talk back made you feel important. But when it came to the main story in-game cutscenes, you were stripped away from all choices of dialogue. Not that those made a real difference in the rest of the game anyway. They just kind of gave the illusion of choice, but end up leading to the same place anyway. From what it feels like, the real interesting stuff is found in the lore through collectibles and information found through your codex. It's clear they've already spent a lot of time on world building and making the universe a place you want to learn more about, but it certainly won't be for everyone. The lore enthusiast and content creators who specialize in piecing those stories together will have plenty of interesting stuff to dig into and collect, but for your average Joe, the story that's presented in the critical path won't be remembered as fondly as the environment or the loot. Speaking of loot, why don't we talk endgame and what the actual gameplay loop is? This is going to be a big boy category here, the one that I have probably the most to say on, and I can imagine it's the thing that everybody is most curious about. Of course, right? Many of us buy looter shooters for that addicting endgame grind. So, let's break it down. When you finish the main campaign, basically your goal becomes get to level 30 and get the good stuff, like every other looter shooter out there. Once I completed the last mission of the story, I came out at level 21. That will vary among players, of course, but even at this level, you can begin diving into the endgame. At launch, here's what you'll be doing post-campaign. You've got strongholds. If you've kept up with Anthem news, this is an obvious one. Strongholds are multi-encounter dungeons with light mechanics that culminate in a big boss at the end. You typically get a couple chests along the way, and they usually take around 10 to 20 minutes. Strongholds are very creative, very unique, and really enjoyable. Currently Anthem's best content. For some reason, there's only 3 of them at launch, with one of them being the final campaign mission. And if you play the demo and try the Tyrant Mine stronghold with a big spider at the end, well, you've already beaten 1/3 of the strongholds in the game, which is seriously unfortunate because they are so much fun. Yes, more will certainly be added down the road, but launching with only 3 variations of your most prestigious activity is a huge letdown. Then you have contracts. Contracts are something that you were introduced to early on in the game. They're smaller missions offered by a variety of characters that have you go out into the world and complete certain objectives. For example, one of the contracts I had to fulfill was to hunt down a group of enemies, then hunt down their leader at a different location, and then hunt down a wild beast. It's usually pretty simple stuff that you'll be doing out in the open world, but it is still pretty fun. Once you reach the end game, you'll get access to legendary contracts, which are much harder and offer much better rewards. Quick play is also part of the endgame. Not to be confused with free play, quick play is a feature that allows you to join a random mission or stronghold, depending on which boxes you select, with or without other players. This is how you replay story missions, as those are not selectable on the map like strongholds, and it gives you the chance to run previous content on a higher difficulty for better rewards, or to just help some other players out. No real complaints here, as it would make sense this would be a feature. And the last thing you can expect activity-wise is free play. Gathering materials, exploring hidden places, and completing world events. In my previous review, the one from the beta, I talked about how lame free play was. It's basically just a place to farm crafting materials with easy and very basic events. None of the events appeared to have any trigger for a more complex version. It seems like the only way to make it more difficult is by physically bumping up the difficulty of free play before you launch it. There's those things called hidden places, ironically already marked on the map for you, and they are super lackluster. If you've ever completed a lost sector in Destiny 2, these are exactly what those are like. Very short little cave systems that lead to a chest at the end, and some of them didn't even have a boss. Although I'm pretty sure that was a glitch because in the demo they definitely had bosses like the Lesser Titan and an elite tank dude, but they weren't at all different from your normal enemies. And besides a stunningly gorgeous landscape peppered with some collectibles and hidden chests, there isn't a whole lot to it. Free play feels very, very empty, not in the sense that there isn't any enemies or events happening, but none of it feels meaningful. Again, it just feels like a place that you go to farm materials and that's it. I was disappointed with free play in the demo, and it seems nothing has changed there. Throughout the campaign, and even on occasion afterwards, characters will set you up with agent missions. These are basically like normal missions you experience in the campaign, except without flashy cutscenes. They're usually pretty fun and do help to expand some of the story. So including those, altogether we've got 3 strongholds, agent missions, contracts, and then you've got quick play, and you've also got free play. That's what you're looking at on the activity side of things in the endgame. But now let's talk loot, crafting, gear, factions, the alliance system, feats, and challenges, which are going to be part of your endgame experience. The way loot works in Anthem is it's divided into tables. The harder the activity you complete, the better your chances of getting masterwork items are. To my knowledge, there is no specific loot in the game, which means none of the bosses drop a piece specific to them. This part is kind of disappointing to me because while I do appreciate that it gives players the freedom to do whatever they want, it also takes away from the chase. I'm hoping in the future we can see, at the very least, some sort of stronghold specific loot. The drop rate on items still feels great, just like I spoke about in my last review. In one of my runs of the strongholds, I got 3 epic items in the span of about 8 minutes, which is kind of crazy. Now, not every item will actually be useful that you get. Some stuff you'll just instantly salvage because it drops lower than your power level, but it still gets turned into materials for crafting, so that's a plus. You usually walk away from an activity with a ton of stuff and it feels awesome. But is it too rewarding though? Hard to say for sure right now, but I've definitely been able to level up and climb the power charts very, very fast, and leveling your other javelins is ridiculously easy. Since your pilot level matters more than your actual power level, the game can drop really high gear on any javelin even if you've never touched it. For example, I main an interceptor, and after 2 missions on my storm, I went from not having anything unlocked to being a rare storm, which ended up being higher than my interceptor that I had put maybe 18 hours into at this point. Leveling up your pilot and your javelin power was extremely easy, and the game definitely showers you in loot, which could very well exacerbate the lack of content problem. I guess we won't know for sure until we get more into the game, so that's why this is my first review. Crafting is also a core part of Anthem, and with the right amount of materials, you're able to craft items that you've unlocked the blueprints for. Here's a quick overview of blueprints, which is going to be a huge part of the endgame grind. To unlock blueprints for your items, you need to complete challenges using the type of weapon or ability you want a blueprint for. Completing that challenge rewards you with the blueprint, and then it increases the challenge requirement for a new higher tier blueprint of that item. This happens again and again until you reach a masterwork blueprint. Materials are ridiculously easy to come by in the game, so much so that I'm actually worried it might get nerfed. On top of this, you can actually buy crafting materials from vendors in Fort Tarsus, which is pretty cool, in exchange for coin, which is the non-microtransaction currency. We'll cover that later, but all you need to know right now is you collect materials from out in the world, you get materials from salvaging items, or you can buy them, and then use those materials to craft unlocked blueprints to make gear and weapons that you want. It's a solid endgame system that I really like. I think being able to set your sights on a specific weapon or ability and say, I want to upgrade this, is very awesome. It takes some of that RNG out of the equation and allows players to upgrade exactly what they want and progress towards unlocking a better version of an item that they really enjoy using. The blueprint system is pretty cool. Customization can also be considered part of the grind since you can earn currency to unlock new materials and vinyls, and the fashion endgame is important to me. You gotta look good in battle, right? The only thing that's changed here since the demo is that they added some extra control options and made it feel nicer to spin around your character and see all the different angles. Customization is still a huge plus for me. It's super refreshing like I talked about in my previous review, and I really enjoy all the different fabrics and metals and all of the materials. They give you plenty of variety. There are also consumables, which are one-time use items you can craft that give you bonuses in a mission, but I'm not really going to cover that today since it's not really important to the review. I just wanted to let you know that that exists. Now, during gameplay, you're going to be completing things called challenges and feats. Challenges are, well, what they sound like. They're integrated in a bunch of different ways across the game. You'll want to keep your eye on these and do as many as you can because completing challenges rewards you with extra coin, used to buy those materials and vanity items. There are daily, weekly, and monthly challenges that refresh, and then there are a ton of one-time only challenges which are a little bit concerning. Reason being is because challenges are where you're going to be earning a lot of coin, but once you complete a challenge and get the coin reward, you can never get it again. So that could definitely have an impact once people start getting into the game, and maybe it becomes harder and harder to earn more coin to buy stuff, but I can't speak too much on that now because it is still early, and everything so far is fair as of now. We'll just have to wait and see how that one turns out, but it is something I'm keeping my eye on. Feats are objectives that you can complete in activities that net you extra XP on mission completion. This also pertains to free play as well. The better you do in an activity, with the more feats you have completed, the larger your XP boost will be. I can't say for sure how useful these feats will be after hitting max level, but I do appreciate that both challenges and feats add depth to the gameplay. So it's not just about whoever can do more activities, but rather about doing them well and being a well-rounded player. And finally, there are factions. You've got the Freelancers, the Arcanists, and the Sentinels. These factions are a much more of a passive gameplay system where acquiring materials, collecting loot, and completing activities all increase your loyalty with these factions. You don't have to pledge allegiance to any of these factions though, you just naturally make progress in their loyalty ranks by playing the game. Each faction has 3 loyalty ranks. The rewards for them are rank 1 rewards uncommon blueprints, rank 2 rewards rare blueprints, and rank 3 rewards epic blueprints. I actually got to rank 2 in both the Freelancer and Sentinel factions, as well as getting to rank 3 in the Arcanist faction by the time I finished the campaign, so I'm not sure how much these factions really have to offer in the endgame, but my only real complaint with them right now is that they don't have enough of an in-game presence. I wish there was actual physical vendors that represented each faction, and that you had to make a choice of which one you wanted to pledge to, each one offering something different. I think that would have definitely increased their longevity and made it feel like they had a bigger impact in the game. To sum up the endgame, there are some very well thought out systems in place. The blueprints and crafting are a great way to let players get stronger and progress the way they want to. The game is very rewarding, and I see people having huge stockpiles of materials in the not too distant future. The factions, feats, and challenges are all a great addition to help keep the player engaged. But overall, it's honestly very, very light on actual endgame content, like I had worried about from the very beginning. There's not a lot of actual endgame activities, with only 3 strongholds and still no information on raids at the time of this video. I can see the game getting really repetitive really fast. This could also be very problematic when you consider how easy it is to level up your pilot and javelins and hoard materials. The shallow endgame was a concern of mine since day one. It's exactly what I said in my demo review. From the information that had come out and the way they had structured these activities, it was pretty obvious that the endgame needed work. Things will get fleshed out, expanded upon, and more content is coming eventually, but if the endgame was a deal breaker for you, then I would suggest, and I'm not telling you I'm the only review you should listen to, like please check out other reviews and see what they're saying, because maybe it's just me, but I would suggest waiting if you're someone who is buying the game for a beefy endgame experience. It doesn't seem like Anthem is the chosen one to break the lack of endgame content curse that all these games have suffered from at launch. So this category is pretty big too, so I think we'll break it up into a few smaller subcategories here. We'll talk about gunplay, movement, combat, and combos in one category. Another will be focused on Fort Tarsis, the launch bay, social space, matchmaking, and the alliance system. And the last will be user interface, loading, and other technical issues. So gameplay. Has it improved from the demo? I would actually say yes. With a mouse, things feel noticeably better when flying and swimming underwater. I'd say there's still room for improvement, but I didn't change any settings besides graphical and key binding since I started the game, and everything has felt pretty good at where it is. Gunplay is still satisfying. I found the combat still really fun, probably due to the fact that their lead combat designer was also the combat lead for Halo. Makes sense, the dude is a legend. Flying, a core part of the game, still one of the most fun things to do in Anthem. I absolutely love the verticality aspect of combat, and being able to fly straight up or dive down like a missile never gets old. Like I mentioned earlier, melees could use some work. Some of the hit registration for them and some abilities need tuning. Freeze ability is still very good, similar to the demo. Ultimate abilities feel a little better at higher level, which is great, but I still think they could use a little more oomph. Same with abilities. I really like the combo system. It adds a nice layer of depth to combat that higher skill players can take advantage of. If you've got weapons or abilities with certain effect bonuses, you can actually combo those with effects that are applied to enemies to do a ton of damage. Or for example, if you're an interceptor, and let's say you or a teammate uses an element like ice on an enemy, you can actually spread that aura as an interceptor to others with your melee ability. It's very cool. In my previous review, I said I appreciate the combo system, but the average player isn't really going to bother to learn all the primers and detonators and which abilities combo with what. I think most people, even including myself a lot of the time, just want to shoot some bad dudes in the face and not think too hard. One thing that still bugs me and was a complaint I had from the demo is getting stun locked. It's annoying as hell to get stunned by an enemy and then have all your health shredded away, and I thought it was bad enough on normal and hard, but forget Grandmaster difficulties. At times, the stun locking is so bad the game is virtually unplayable. If you get caught out in the open and stunned, you can go from full health and shields to dead in a second, even as a Colossus. Imagine how that feels as an interceptor. The issue is only compounded by the enemy's freeze mechanics that keep you locked in place even though you're spamming jump. This is still an issue and arguably an even greater one now that we have access to tougher difficulties. I would much rather just get rid of the stun lock effects completely. I feel like it's just a really harmful mechanic that just takes a lot of the fun out of the gameplay. Fort Tarsis is a gorgeously designed location. Not quite as gorgeous as the E3 demo though, but no huge complaints here other than the sprint speed still doesn't feel like sprinting. Sometimes the audio bugs out and there isn't any music or there's no ambient chatter noise, but other than that, Fort Tarsis has a handful of vendors and kiosks You've got your crafting materials vendor, which first you've got to tab over from the microtransactions page, which I wish it were the other way around, but I get it. You've got your vault and your forge, a newsfeed table, which is pretty cool, your daily, weekly, and monthly trials, which are basically challenges that refresh and offer rewards, your alliance system, and of course your javelin, which you use to start an expedition. Now, off to the right of the main stage, you have your launch bay. This is unlocked sometime through the story, and it's a social space area that you have to load into because Fort Tarsis is a solo hub. And once you load into the social space and look around, you ask yourself, why the hell did I come here? And then you never return again. This social space, which was added last minute, has the exact same stuff as Fort Tarsis, but instead it's about 1/10 of the size, and the only difference is that other players occupy this space. You cannot inspect them, but instead you can hover over them and invite them to your squad, ignore them, or favorite them, none of which are actually helpful. The social space is just kind of pathetic. It really doesn't offer any good ways for players to connect and group up like an actual LFG system or anything. I was hoping BioWare was going to prioritize this for a game so heavily centered around group play, but it doesn't seem like any of those features made the cut. There is literally no reason to ever go to the social space because all it does is make you sit through a really long loading screen for no benefit. There's also the alliance system, which essentially is like a clan system that is set up automatically for you. Regardless of the platform you're on, it takes the people on your friends list and puts them in your alliance. And the more you play and the more of your friends play, the more coin you earn, to put it simply. I don't really have any strong opinions on this. If you've got more friends, you're going to benefit more, similar to a lot of games. Speaking of friends and group play, I'm really happy how prevalent matchmaking is in Anthem. There's matchmaking for all activities so far, which is awesome, and you have the choice to opt out of matchmaking for everything but free play. I love this feature. I think this is how all games should work. By default, match you with other people and then give you the option to do things solo. Now, it's not perfect. There is no text chat, so I can't exactly message someone and say, hey, you want to do a stronghold or hunt for chests for this tomb? The random would just have to stop what they're doing and be up for whatever I wanted to do without knowing what that is. And most people don't talk on the mic. I have yet to hear a single person in Anthem speak, so that doesn't help at all. Also, there's still a big issue with AFK players. They haven't sorted that out yet. People can still just chill and get credit for the activity. And sometimes, when you matchmake, actually a lot of times, it will actually plop you into a mission that was already started a few minutes or seconds ago, which means your teammates will be already doing the mission, and if you're not caught up to the first objective area, the game is going to instantly give you a countdown timer to catch up, or it will teleport you to them. That wouldn't be so bad, except to teleport you to them for some reason, the game needs to send you through a loading screen. This brings us right to our next topic, almost like I planned it that way, technical issues. Anthem has a captivating world with thrilling gameplay and loading screens every 5 goddamn minutes. You thought the 95% loading bug was bad. Well, this is mostly gone, which means we get to experience the other 1,000 loading screens at every possible corner of the map. I don't think I need to explain how awful it is that a game made by a AAA studio in 2019 forces you to sit through a loading screen to do anything. Some are shorter than others, but it isn't enjoyable to have so much free time when loading anytime you try to do something. Loading into a social space, loading to respawn, loading to go into a hidden place, loading after you were teleported to be caught up to your teammates. This is one of the biggest fun killers in the game, just constantly sitting there waiting for things to load. We have games like Destiny, and we have games like The Division, where you can seamlessly phase in and out of zones, and you don't need to sit through a loading screen to change up your weapons or gear or customize yourself. The Division 2's fast travel time is about 4 seconds. That's quicker than it takes Anthem to boot up the loading screen, and it's about as long as it takes to jump into the Forge to even customize your character. And games like Destiny don't get nearly enough credit for its loading screens, which are first of all pretty to look at, and not just a progress bar with concept art, but during the loading sequence, you can swap out weapons and armor, you can upgrade them, infuse them, dismantle them, you can customize your gear with weapons and mods, you can check your clan and inspect friends or teammates in your current session, you can pull out cosmetics and gear out of your collections, you can even read lore from the Triumphs page. You can do 0 of that in Anthem. You cannot do anything while loading. And it blows my mind how we take Destiny's system for granted. Not being able to equip new items during the end screens of missions, or change up your loadout even in free play, in Anthem is just absurd, and it's such a step backwards. When it comes to the menus, they've definitely got a little bit easier to use, at least on PC, but the user interface is still just kind of over-designed and overworked mess. And certain information is just hidden for some reason. Like, when I was going to check my progress for the Tombs mission, the actual objective I had to complete wasn't visible under the critical path section, aka the main story tab, but instead, they were tucked away in the challenges tab. Had I known this earlier, I wouldn't have had to run all over the map to each tomb individually and keep checking my progress on them. Menus, not great, not intuitive. I trust this will get refined though eventually, but menus are a hassle right now. I try to avoid using them as much as possible. When it comes to bugs and glitches and technical issues, I'm pretty sure I got every single one imaginable, from completely destroyed and glitched out cutscenes and missions and disappearing characters to audio cutting completely out and even breaking to where I had to restart the game, and even enemies disappearing and reappearing. To be completely honest, this is just not acceptable in the slightest from a company like BioWare. It is super buggy and doesn't at all feel polished. It kind of feels like Mass Effect Andromeda all over again in a lot of ways. Since we're on the topic of bugs and features, I do want to highlight some things that I think are absolutely necessary that aren't in the game yet. Not to downplay the bugs or anything, they absolutely ruined part of my experience with the game, but the things you see on the screen right now are things I think need to get added very soon. Most of these I mentioned in my last review, but if you didn't see that, that's basically my wish list, and it's unfortunate none of them made it into the game for launch, because a lot of these things feel like they should be part of the core features, but are just absent. It's just another example of the game needing a lot of time and feedback to improve. Now, I don't know what kind of fixes are scheduled for the day one patch that's arriving on February 22nd, but I can't imagine it will add any of these features. It's probably meant to fix bugs and technical issues, which I wish it would have arrived on the 15th, but I guess that's early access for you. And finally, microtransactions. Oh yeah, and the economy too. We'll talk about that. So what's the deal with the microtransactions store? Is it unfair? Is it overpriced? Are the cosmetics even worth it? Well, from what it seems like, the original prices might have very well been $20, but whatever their original plans were, they were scrapped. I'm not going to say this was because of the fans' reactions, because I don't truly know, but there's a good chance that's the case. I didn't cover microtransactions in my previous reviews because when I heard they were doing cosmetic-only stuff, I immediately didn't think it was important enough to cover. I'm personally not someone who's drawn to cosmetics often, but at least they're priced fairly. And I say that because after playing the game for a good amount of hours, it's clear that the rate at which you earn coin right now is completely and totally fair. After playing the game for 2 days, I already have enough to afford one of the skins that they're selling, so no problems with these microtransactions at all, and the economy feels fair for now. So, what do I suggest after everything I've played and after all the pros and cons of the game? Well, I talked about a lot in this video, and I realized that there were plenty of things that I covered that on their own may not have been a deal breaker, but combined, I think there's just too many issues, especially for a AAA developer and publisher, for this to be worth full price. My completely honest opinion is that this game just has so much potential and is a blast when it's just you in the open world and everything is working, but a large chunk of the game is just not ready. It feels so early access to me. If you're someone who really wants to get the most out of your purchase, because you can't just go around buying every new game and trying them all out, definitely wait, or at the very least try and get access to some sort of trial. The game is just not finished. While it does have some really good systems in place to keep you hooked, like blueprints and challenges, it doesn't have enough content, and I can see what's there getting extremely repetitive very quickly. There's not enough of an endgame there, there's a ton of crucial missing features, just way too many bugs and technical issues, at least right now, to justify the purchase. My first 5 hours of the game were practically flawless, but after that, the performance drops and the low FPS and other glitches and bugs just made the game so much worse, so much so that it became a completely different experience by the end of the campaign. Maybe that's just for PC though, but it's rough nonetheless. Again, don't get me wrong, the game is really fun and I plan on continuing to cover its evolution. It's just so much fun to explore the gorgeous environments, and I really wish I could just give all the microtransaction money to the artists, because without them this game would be nothing. But there is just too much left to be desired in other areas of the game. If you are still interested in Anthem, follow it. Keep up to date on the game, watch as more and more content and fixes are added, because like I said in my original review for the demo, it will eventually be a really great game. It's a fun but shallow world with too many problems that outweigh the good. Like the others of its kind, it needs time and it needs feedback, but it just isn't there yet. And I'll admit that even as someone who loves these type of games so much, I'm getting seriously fatigued from seeing every single one of these looter shooters just completely miss the mark by so much at launch. Hopefully the game can turn around quicker than others, but the fact that it has to turn around anything at all is a huge disappointment. That's going to be all from me today. I hope you guys found this video informative or helpful, and thank you so much for watching.